In the last video, I showed you how to do a basic mix in regards to EQ, compression, levels, and panning. Today, I'm going to take that a little bit further. I'm going to show you auxiliary channels, bussing, and I'm also going to show you how to do a little bit of mastering just so that you can do a basic master on your tracks to kind of get that mastered feel. So this is the exact same track from last time. I've done a little bit of changes. I've kind of changed the snare sound a little bit. I've also done a bit of EQ and compression on all of the drums and changed the levels a little bit accordingly after I've done that. I just used the exact same methods that I used last time when I showed you. So I just saved a little bit of time because I spent about half an hour or so just tweaking it and making it just sound just kind of how I want it. So I will play it for you now and just give you a little bit of a gist on what it sounds like, and then we'll get into using auxiliary channels. So that's kind of what we're working with. I said last time that I want this first bit here, this little intro bit, I want it to be entirely affected. And we're going to get to that, that's what I'm going to show you second. But first I'm going to show you a bit about auxiliary channels, and mainly I just want to show you it in regards to reverb. So we'll jump over into the mixer, and what I want to do is with the snare, I kind of want to just add a bit of reverb to it because it sounds a little bit dead in the mix. I want to give it a bit of life and a bit of, I don't know, character. This is kind of what the snare sounds like. It's pretty dead. It is because it's a sample. It wasn't recorded in a room. There's no spill from any of the other cymbals or any of the other drums. It's just a snare, and it's a little bit boring on its own. So I'm gonna send it to an auxiliary channel. The way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna click on this little thing here, which is a send. I can send it to wherever I like, essentially. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send it to a bus. If you don't do anything, a bus doesn't exist. It's not a thing. You have to send it to a bus, and then you send a bus to something else, and it creates that link, hence it being called a bus. So I'm going to send it to bus 1, and for now I'm going to give it essentially 0 decibels. I'm going to send just the normal amount of the track. At the moment, that doesn't do anything. If I click play, nothing has changed. What we need to create is we need to create an auxiliary track. Luckily, in Logic, it already creates an auxiliary track for me. You'll notice that the input for this track is bus 1. So anything I now send to bus 1 will be sent to this auxiliary track. If the whatever DAW you're working in doesn't work like that, you can go into create a track and create an auxiliary track, and then you can set it to whatever bus you've just sent the audio to. So now anything that I edit over here, anything that I do, will happen in parallel to the track itself. I'll show you what that means. I'll put something on this track that is obviously different. So I will put a massive distortion on it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to unsolo the snare, and I'm just going to just solo that auxiliary channel. So that is currently just a massive distorted snare. It sounds absolutely disgusting. I mean, you might like it. If we solo both the snare track and the auxiliary track, we actually get both. We get the undistorted version, which is just coming down through this snare track, and we also get the distorted version because we send the bus across to it. So if that was the kind of sound that you want, like bands like Mets, for example, use actual distorted drums, this is kind of how they do it. So that's not actually what I want to do. What I want to do is put a reverb on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a reverb, and I'm just going to mold it while just the auxiliary is soloed on its own. I'm going to try and get the kind of sound that I want, and then I will start blending it with the dry sound itself. So I've got kind of the sound that I want with that reverb. I'll just turn it off and then on just so you can see what kind of difference it's making. See how it just kind of brings it to life? It feels like it's actually alive and has a bit of energy rather than just quite a dry, just hitting snare. It's got a bit more character to it. So that inside the mix. See, inside the mix, it's not even that noticeable that there is a reverb on the snare, but once you turn it off and then on again, there's a massive difference, and it has a lot more kind of presence within the track without it just being louder. So the next thing that I want to show you is using auxiliaries, just like that, but I want to send everything to it. I don't want to have that blend of some of the dry signal and then some of the wet signal. I want the entire thing to be affected, and I don't just want it to be one track. I don't just want the snare to be affected by this. What I want to do is I want to take all of these red tracks here and I want to put an effect on all of them. I might even want to put multiple effects on all of them. So the easiest way to do that, rather than to put it on here and then copy and paste it across and across and across and across and across, is that I can send. See, this little output thing here is currently going to stereo out, which is just the output of the entire track. What I can do is actually, I can send all of these tracks to a bus. And because I'm not using the little send here and I'm actually using it in the output, I'm sending the entire signal. There is no dry signal. Everything is going to be sent to this auxiliary channel, which means I can then affect everything all at once. So I've sent everything to bus 2, and automatically auxiliary 2 has opened up. So I'll now solo auxiliary 2, so you'll notice that none of these intro tracks are soloed, yet we are hearing everything, because everything is being sent to this auxiliary 2. I'll just show you that I can edit the volume of this, and nothing comes through. It is just this track. And I can even unsolo it, and it's the same. Because it's been sent, everything is coming through this. So I'll start messing around with a few effects. I want to kind of ruin the sound a little bit. I kind of want to make it sound like it's coming out of an old radio or something like that. So I'll mess around with a few different effects, and thankfully it will do it to everything. So I'll just have the final sound there rather than having to kind of wing it. So I'll just play that, and I'll just go through and show you kind of what I'm doing. So, I've done a hell of a lot there. I've got a bit of an EQ on it that's taking the entire bottom end off and a lot of the top end off. I've got a rotomotor on it, which is making it sound super odd, and that's kind of like the kind of radio thing that I kind of wanted to go for. Then I've compressed the shit out of it to kind of make it sound like it is coming through a radio and it's kind of all coming out at the same volume. Then I put a bit of a delay on it just to kind of make it sound like it's a little bit inside of a room. I've also done the same there by sending it to that reverb bus that we made earlier. That's mainly just quite a subtle thing that I've done to try and make it seem like it's within the space of the song rather than it being quite dry. I've then just whacked a bit crusher on the end and just kind of made it sound a little bit lower quality. Well, some of those on their own aren't doing a great deal, but when it's put together, it sounds like kind of mashed and a bit destroyed like what I wanted. So I'll play that now with the entire track to kind of see how it leads into the fully mixed thing itself, and then I might tweak accordingly. Okay, so that sounds pretty alright. There are a few tweaks that I would make if I was gonna keep going with this mix and make it into a full final thing. I might mess around with a little bit of reverb or delay on those guitars. I could also maybe mess about with a little bit of reverb on the bass. Maybe I'd test what that sounds like. But for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a basic kind of master that you can do, mainly so that you can mix with a master in mind, because every track that's gonna be released really needs to be mastered. And mastering a track can drastically change some of the characteristics of the track. For example, if you've got quite punchy drums, you can get to a point in a mix where it sounds perfect, and then you master it, or you get someone else to master it, like a mastering engineer, and the song can sometimes come back like the drums don't sound right in the mix like how you put them. Some limiting will drastically change the peaks to make it sound like the bits that you wanted quite loud aren't as loud as before. So what you can do as quite a simple fix to that is put a bit of a master onto your output channel while you're mixing. Don't use it as necessarily a final master, just have it kind of to reference so that your track is being limited, and it does have maybe like a bit of an EQ, kind of adjusting things on the overall track, mainly because that is what a master engineer will be doing. Granted, they might be able to do it a little bit better, but it will give you the sound, or at least a close sound to what the master track will sound like. So any of those peaks that are being altered by mastering, you can then change them in the mix before you actually send them to be properly mastered. All I really normally do is I put a bit of an EQ on first. I follow that up with a compressor. I don't normally use the compressor a great deal unless it's a very specific thing that I'm wanting to do with it, and then after that I put a limiter on. So I start with the limiter, I work backwards. So what I will do is, if you don't know what a limiter does, it will essentially, you set the loudest that you want your track to be, and then you can just push up the volume of your track to get closer and closer to that point, which then, if you do it enough, will entirely brick wall your track. Done right, it just makes your song the same volume as everyone else's song that's been released in like the past 30 years. I'm going to set my output level, which is the kind of shelf that it's going to stop everything at minus 0.1. Really, you can do it to 0 dB if you really want, but it does sometimes still clip because it classes 0 as clipping, so I do it at minus 0.1 just so that I don't get any peaking. And then I'll just gradually push up the gain until it sounds still nice and not too brick walled. Like, I'll push it too far just to show you what it sounds like when something's brick walled. In fact, I'll do that now. I'll just show you that. So this is it completely unmastered. And then I'll gradually just start pushing up the gain. So it's not necessarily distorting because it's not clipping. The sound that you're hearing is almost like, as every peak dips, it's turning the volume up to kind of match that same level, and it's doing so with the guitars and the cymbals, which is getting like kind of a really horrible distorted sound coming through, which is obviously not what you want. So this, again, like I was on about last time, is about subtlety and about kind of doing everything in moderation. So I'm going to push it up until the volume meter here is kind of touching on the top, but it's still kind of coming below on the troughs. So we're getting the peaks, which are being heavily limited, and then the troughs, which are kind of like the quieter parts of the phrasing, is still being dynamic and isn't at the loudest that it can possibly be. I'll show you. So you see how everything here, we've got peaks and then it dips, and we've got peaks and it dips, and we've got peaks and it dips. Like on every kind of snare hit, it's kind of going up and then it's dropping back down. I want to kind of keep that dynamic range, but just kind of shorten it a little bit and obviously push it to the volume max so that it is as loud as every other mastered track. Okay, so I'm going to keep it about there. I could push that a little bit more if I wanted to, but I like it feeling a little bit more dynamic than heavily brick walled, so I'll keep it like that. If it feels like what I'm doing is quite aggressive, then I'll come in and put a little bit of a, like say 3-to-1 thing on at -6 like what we did last time. Sometimes that will sort it out, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn that off for now. And then I'll go into the EQ and just kind of mess around and kind of see what maybe the track needs. Like listening to this throughout this little episode, I think I want a little bit more low end in the entire track, a little bit more of the kick in, a little bit more of the bass guitar in. So I'm just going to mess around and just add a little bit of a tweak. This is going to be the subtlest EQ of the entire track. Like it's so easy to make a track sound awful just by pushing something a little bit too far in a master EQ. So I'll just mess around with that and then I'll talk you through what it was that I've done. So all I've done here really is around the 1K, 2K, which is where a lot of the clarity of things come in. I've just push that a little bit down, the snare feels really clicky, and there's a lot of kind of presence from it, which I get was what I wanted when I was mixing it earlier, but I feel like it's just in there a little bit too much. I've just dropped that. I've dropped that minus 1.5, so that's not a great deal at all. I've pushed the low end a decent amount, like 4.5 decibels right at the low end, 2.5 decibels, about 200 hertz. And then I've pushed it 1 decibel right at the top at 10k. That's it. I'll turn it off and on just to show you what I've done. If the track now feels just a little bit more, I don't know, better, I guess. There's no other word for it. It just sounds just a little bit tweaked and a little bit more perfected. So I'll just turn it off and then on just to kind of show you what it is that I've done. Using everything that I've shown you in this episode and the last one, you could mix an entire track. Obviously, I haven't done vocals yet. Vocals will be coming. We'll be doing an entire episode dedicated to mixing vocals because they are an entirely different beast in terms of where they're sat and kind of what you can and can't do with them. So we will take a track that we've done previously, probably Vincent Vega, and we will show you how we mix that in terms of the vocals and kind of the effects and stuff that we used. So that will be coming very, very soon. I hope this helped. If you have any questions about mixing in tracks or what something does or anything like that, don't hesitate to ask. I will answer everything that you want about this kind of mixing and stuff. I hope that was helpful, and we will come to you with the vocal video hopefully very, very soon, hopefully within the next month. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more videos from this series, click on the left hand side of the screen. If you want to see our best of playlist, click on the right hand side of the screen. And I'll see you Saturday.